Whenever you have to create any kind of design for the web, one of the first things that you learn is that you need to have some underlying structure to hold it all together. And quite often what designers use is an invisible grid, a grid that can't be seen by anybody else, but they know it's there and they've designed according to that grid. CSS now has a grid built into it, and you may have heard of things like Bootstrap or Foundation in the past, which are front-end grid frameworks. There's no need to use any of those ever again, really. The CSS Grid is super flexible and will do everything that you want it to do. So let's dive in and have a quick introduction with it. So I've just created an initial div on the screen, a division, and I'm going to put my grid inside there. I've created a class called grid. We'll do that in a moment. And now I've just created 10 cells inside there, which are going to populate that grid. Now at the moment, that's nothing at all. If we look at this and save this, view it in the web browser, we'll have more or less an empty page. There's nothing really there. There's no grid at all. So let's go ahead and make that grid. And I'm going to insert a CSS file in here. So I'm going to use my external style sheet from the HTML skeleton, and I'm going to call this CSS design.css. Let's create a new page, file, save as, inside CSS, design.css. Okay, so this is a basic grid. We're telling this to display as a grid and have 3 columns, one fraction of the web browser apart. So each one of those is one fraction apart, which means we're going to have 3 columns. And just on the cell, just so we can see the cell, let's put in a background color and let's put in a height. So if we look at that now, what we see is our 10 spots on the screen. And as you can see, they are all spaced out evenly. So things that we can do that make this work a lot better. We can put a gap between them, and then we can see that much clearer. There are also other ways to write this as well, so let's look at 1 or 2 of those ways as well. You could say auto, auto, auto. And again, that will do the same thing. Now, when content is in there, if you had a bigger section here or something that was bigger, these would collapse accordingly. So maybe not always the best thing to do. Another thing that we can write in there is repeat 3 with 1 fraction each. And that's another way of doing it. Or another thing that we could even say is just write in 100 pixels for the first one, 1 FR, 30%, and mix them that way. And then we get 100 pixels and 30%, and then the fraction that's left in between gets filled automatically. So it's a very flexible way for you to be able to start creating content in there.